It's day 14 and was kind of around the neighborhood today in the area of Auteuil and a particular street, well known, called Michelange, named after Michelangelo, I figured out. And just a pleasant, relaxing day, a little bit of local shopping. And I can think of one great French moment, which was seeing a father with his maybe 4-year-old son in the back of his bike, and he had clearly been to the bakery getting his baguette, and either the child was hungry or loves baguettes. He had snapped off the top. The child was eating the baguette in his little bike seat, and there's a mostly full baguette in the basket. It was a great little French moment. It is becoming fall here. It is a little bit colder, getting dark a little earlier. The leaves are still starting to change. There's quite a range here of some trees with no leaves left and some that aren't showing any color change at all. So it is a extended fall period here perhaps. And I'll apologize because it's an easy metaphor, but we definitely have seasons in our lives, and I think the complexity and the challenge for midlife is really around, I think, both that it's not talked about a whole lot. There are no particular ceremonies or rituals or events that mark it. It's sort of a period where a lot of people go through and can think that they're alone, can feel like they're going through a whole lot of change that others aren't going to. And I think especially because it's quite an internal change. It is from the inside out. So looking at somebody, you may not realize what they're going through. They may have all appearances of continuing to be happy and successful, and they may want to continue to project being happy and successful, even if they're not, because of their own fears and their own doubts about validating the pain that they're experiencing. It's often said that midlife can also be kind of everything all at once. It is not one thing, and it is not something that always looks like a crisis or a disaster. In fact, that's usually what has people second guessing it, is we can tell ourselves we're supposed to be grateful, we're supposed to be happy, perhaps this is as good as it gets, and we simply need to have a better attitude about it rather than wanting more or wanting different. People often talk about a degree of stagnation of a job that no longer challenges them, and that can make sense. When we start early in our careers, we've got lots of ambition, and there's a fair bit of mystery in some ways around how it will all turn out. And usually by the time we've achieved some of these senior leadership roles, we're fairly comfortable in our skills. It can be challenging at times, but at the same time, we're not learning and growing as much. We are expanding, we are navigating difficult situations, we are sometimes finding that inner strength within, but not the same genuine challenge that you have earlier in your career. And it's also where your satisfaction comes from. So you may or may not be excited about seeing the profit of your organization increase or increasing your share price. You may feel more driven towards purpose. You may value the mentorship or the leadership and growing leaders more than some of the other pieces. And depending on the mix that you get in your kind of daily work life, that can really affect some of the overall satisfaction and overall balance. Same thing often can come up in relationships as well. There's a sense of familiarity, of routine. Often with busy couples, it can be a lot more about logistics for a lot of years, and some of that drift can happen. Some of that being alongside but not being connected in the same way, not having that depth of connection. Some of the unfolding and mystery might be gone a little bit because you feel like you know this person better than they know themselves, and both the good and the bad. And while you may absolutely still love and care for that individual, some of the elements of romance, especially those highlighted by movies or books, the sense of excitement, of novelty, of unexpectedness, spontaneity, and chemistry may not feel like the experience that you're having. And this can also happen when you reach an empty nest situation, when the kids have left and you're sort of two strangers in a house and needing to redefine. I've seen couples where, frankly, years of resentment have built up, and that becomes a silent barrier to reconnecting. There's a whole lot of work that needs to happen in terms of really being able to communicate with each other for needs and desires that weren't met, resentments, things that happen that were maybe not dealt with in the moment, and finding that way back to each other can be really difficult. We're in an age where our parents start to get older. They may become more frail. They may need us to provide care for them. And we start to realize their time is far more finite than maybe we were ready to accept at an earlier age. And that has the trickle-down effect of asking us to consider our own mortality. It's also a time of letting go of certain things and accepting that certain dreams may never happen, whether those are career aspirations, athletic aspirations, whether we are comfortable and happy in the career path that we chose. It can be a time of second guessing, of wondering what if we had taken a different path, wondering if we had made different decisions. And it's easy to perhaps be self-critical in that. Of course, everybody wants to look back and wish they would have bought whatever tech stock when it was cheap, or bought real estate in a particular market, or bought Bitcoin or whatever it was. But that's kind of armchair critic stuff. It is easy to look back when we know how the future comes out, because there are just as many decisions you also could have made that could have turned out poorly. But I understand the concept of second guessing. I understand the concept of potentially regret, and what are the regrets that we live with, and where do we need to accept those? Where do we need to perhaps be kinder to ourselves as we think about those and sit with those? And really it becomes a space of accepting our life partly for where it is, but I think more so it is a space of accepting ourselves and then figuring out how pieces of our life may need to change to better accommodate that, to better reflect that in our lives. What does it mean to start truly being yourself? What do you no longer have the tolerance to put up with? What do you no longer need to put up with? Where are you no longer chasing acceptance and approval, or making decisions for fear of judgment or criticism, or what other people might think of those decisions? This is the moment when you have to start making the right decisions for you. And it's a long and somewhat murky process. I wish I could tell you that it was quick, that it was easy, that there were 10 steps and you'd be done and feeling great. But it really is a process of ongoing change, and just when we think we've been through one change, another change can emerge. It is those moments of regret. It is perhaps moments of sadness for letting go and mourning different pieces of our lives that have now passed. It is looking forward with an uncertain future on finding the courage to make the right decision. It is learning to trust our instincts, to learn to trust that voice within us that knows what the right decision is, and not strictly trying to analyze something to death, because this is less of an age of logic and analysis and more of an age of fullness and richness to life and meaning and the things that make life worth living. And so that's what makes this such a murky season in our lives. It simply starts as often a quiet voice, often something whispering to us, something that gets our attention. And try as we might, and often we're really good at distracting or numbing, it tends to keep coming back to us, and something about it rings so true that there is no ignoring it, that there maybe choosing to set it aside for a while because it feels uncomfortable. But ultimately, that truth is powerful enough that it's not going to go away. And your job is to learn to sit with it, to learn what needs to happen to align with it, to take stock of where you are, where you've been, and where you're going, and what you want this next chapter to be about, what you want this next season to be about. It is going to happen whether you want to move forward or not. We are all aging every year, and the more that you put that decision off, or the more that you try to aim before the more external achievements, the longer you're going to prolong that suffering. And so it is a matter of finding ourselves. It is a matter of knowing that we've hit that point where our sense of identity and our sense of who we are, either through just hanging out with them for enough years or because something within us has crystallized, that we are settling into who we are, and that we now have the confidence that we don't need everybody else's approval. There is a level of self-acceptance and a level of willingness to live a life that's truer to us, to live a life that has meaning and richness to it. And it's not an easy journey. It's not talked about nearly enough. It is not role modeled nearly enough. And again, I show up not as a role model, but as going through my own experience and hoping that others can learn whatever they're going to learn in that process. It is also more challenging, I think, for men because we're taught to be stoic. We're taught to achieve and to deliver and to provide more than to feel, and to be present and to choose ourselves. I think both genders have certain versions of what it means to make yourself a priority, and both of them would benefit from at times acknowledging that and making the decisions and taking the actions to make ourselves that priority. It is a journey that will go through multiple seasons, and the best way to put yourself on the right course is first to accept it, to know that it's there, to know that there's something fundamental about the truth of it, and to start giving it space, to not necessarily fix it or solve it, but to come quiet enough to listen to it, to understand it, to start to get in touch with it, to feel it perhaps more than think it. And again, as men, often this is not our go-to. We are not really taught to make decisions based on our feelings. We are not taught to trust our intuition. We are often encouraged to use our intellect, to use our logic and our strategy. And again, as leaders, as senior leaders, we are masters at strategy and logic and problem solving. It is what our entire career has rewarded us on. But this is not a problem to be solved. This is a space to embrace. This is a message and an intuition that needs to start becoming embodied. And that may not happen overnight, but little by little, it will become more and more familiar. You'll learn to trust it, and you'll learn to have a relationship with it, and you'll learn to be able to rely on it, most importantly. And that can guide those harder decisions. That can guide the more complicated decisions around career, around relationships, around decisions about how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, how you make your living. And the first step is just letting it be there and knowing that it's there and not fighting it and not pushing it away and not choosing not to deal with it, but also recognizing it's not a weekend event to sit down, figure it out, and solve it. It is accepting a process that will unfold at its own pace in the experiences that you're having, in the things that you do or don't do, and more often than not, where you can find quiet, that's the space to start moving yourself forward. So perhaps a bit of a heavier day, perhaps more content heavy than Paris content today, but I think it's really, really important, and I really wanted to share it because this is my own version of finding this spaciousness within my time here. It is, as I've talked about, taking myself out of the familiar to figure out who I am when I strip away some of those routines, strip away some of those easy coping mechanisms or habits that exist in how I spend my time, and following what brings me joy while I'm here and where I need more of it in my life, and pieces where I'm spending time worrying about things or doing things that I can probably let go of. And I hope to be able to continue to share those with you as I have. It is perhaps a changing month, a life-changing month, perhaps not, but I'm in the journey to see where it goes, to see what I can learn, and to try and share that with you. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time for day 15.